How suspicious would this make you? My wife 50F and I 57M have been married for 4 years now. We met as a SD/SB and moved quickly to a vanilla relationship. She has always been a little closed off about her time as an SB. She has been adamant that she never cheated in her past relationships, but she has also told me that she never slept with married men as a SB, and I have found ample evidence to refute that statement. This happened a while ago and I have been wondering what others might think. My wife travels when she works. She only does this a few times a year. So she took a trip about 1,000 miles away from where we live to work an event. While staying there, she told me on a phone call that she was going to dinner with an old friend that had a daughter she knew as well, and they lived in this city and she wanted to catch up. There was no name given or any explanation of how she knew this old friend. The next day she told me when I asked about her dinner with her old friend that it did not happen as he was at his house about 60 miles from where we live. When she told me this, AL remembered that I knew someone who fit that description. Early on in our relationship, she had left her email open on our computer while she was away, and curiosity got the better of me and I looked through it. There was nothing bad in it, but it did hold a great deal of correspondence from her former time as at SB. There was a folder with a man's name on it. In it was her emails with him when he was her SD. Not a problem for me, as all of this was before me, but out of curiosity, I stalked him on Facebook. He had a business that was centered in both towns. The one she was currently in and the one she said her old friend was in that night. He also has a daughter. I believe this former SD was her old friend that she did not identify. My question is whether this would make you suspicious if it happened to you. I also have to add that at this time we were not having relationships due to her saying her libido was low, and yet she was self-pleasuring herself regularly during this time. Comments. 1. The fact that she self-commutes instead of having sex with you would be enough for me. The rest of it just makes it worse. OP, I understand. That has been very problematic for me. I've asked why he self-pleases instead of having relationships with me, and all I get is complete denial of that and the same story that he has no libido. 2. I also have to add that at this time we were not having relationships due to her claiming that her libido was low, however she regularly self-indulged regularly during this time. Doesn't sound like low libido to me. Story makes her sound highly suspicious. She should have totally told you before and offered to not go on the date if you were at all bothered. It probably doesn't matter. Are you willing to be in a less than transparent and likely dishonest relationship? 3. It does sound suspicious, but don't let your mind wander and think the worst to just stress for no reason. Think the best thing to do would be to ask her about who she was meant to be seeing. If she answers you, then there you go, but if she skirts around the subject, then I think you have an answer. You're married, you love and respect each other, so you should be able to honestly speak to her about your worries without her getting defensive or upset. 4. Seems to me like she's showing early signs of getting tired of marriage and you and wanting to regain the thrill, validation, and money of her previous occupation. Put a PI to work, retain a good divorce lawyer, and I hope you live in an at-fault state. Also, next time, don't fall in love with someone who's with you for your money. They're literally a medium-term rental at best. At worst, you may end up deleted for that sweet inheritance. Update, more suspicious things. I posted last week about my wife having a suspicious dinner date while traveling for work. I really appreciated all the input. But there are several other incidents over our marriage that are the reason I have become so suspicious and have developed so much trust issues with her. I will lay them out here and welcome your thoughts. My wife has maintained since I met her that she has never cheated ever. I myself cheated on my first wife after an extended dead bedroom, and I told my wife about this up front. For the first 3 years of our relationship, I believed her. She was cheated on during an engagement 6 years before I met her, and she told me how devastating it was for her. When we were dating, she told a story about co-owning a business for just a few months before selling it. Her and her co-owner had a couple of drinks together in the business, and he made a pass at her that she did not refuse. This led to kissing and more. She told me it stopped just short of relationships. She was always a little vague about when she owned this business, but I had always assumed it was after her divorce from her first husband and before the guy who cheated on her. I never gave it much thought until I realized she moved in with the guy who cheated on her during her divorce. Then I discovered that the business reopened after she sold it 2 full years before she filed for divorce, so her story had to have taken place before that. That would be cheating in my book. The next incident occurred about 6 months into our marriage. She travels for work and never gave me her flight info. While away on a trip, she told me she would be back in town at a certain time. She sent me a screenshot of her messages to show me something else, but also on it was a text from the airline with her flight number. So on a whim, I looked it up. It came in about 3 hours before she said it would. I asked her that night about why she lied and where she was during that time. She exploded at me, said I was accusing her of cheating, and yelled for over an hour about how if she wanted to have relationships with someone else, she would have relationships with someone else. She did say she was meeting with a client for work during that time, but then why would she need to lie? Next up was an incident while I was working away and would spend the week working and come home. This day they messed up my hotel reservation and I decided to drive home. It was only 1.5 hours drive. She texted me about that same time that her best friend had dinner reservations and the other couple had backed out, so her friend invited her and a single guy they both knew to fill in. I will admit this made me feel uncomfortable. He is her type physically and is a well-to-do divorce attorney who has made comments to her about how attractive she is. So I told her that I was on my way home. He started telling me that it was a bad idea and that I should find another hotel. I declined and she became more and more insistent that I stay until I asked her why it was bothering her so much that I was coming home. She then backed off and said she was still going to dinner and would see me later. When she got home, she was stunning. Makeup done, hair done, and in a nice dress. To put this in context, we have gone to this restaurant several times and she always goes in pigtails, no makeup, and leggings and a hoodie. Next up is last year, she traveled for an event she was working. She told me that it was so hot that she had to sneak off and get 4 fluids one day. She told me she went to a hospital to have this done. At the end of the event, she had me text her boss that she had to have the 4 fluids. When she got home, I unloaded her car for her. One thing I noticed was that there were no discharge papers in the visor. Like clockwork, she always puts her discharge papers in the visor. Between this and having me text her boss, my radar was up. Then she started trying to hide who was liking her Facebook posts with an explanation that made no sense. When that failed, all her recent posts disappeared for a week. Her explanation of that was that she had no idea how it happened. With my radar up, I did something I am not proud of. I called all the hospitals in the area asking for a bill. I gave every iteration of her name and they looked at every day of the event. There was no record of a visit by her. I know her boss is a no-nonsense guy and would not support anything underhanded. I feel the whole 4 fluid story was to cover an absence from the event. One other thing from this story: at the time she was doing Facebook searches of a former lover and his wife. He lives about 1.5 hours from the event. So no smoking gun, but a lot to think about. Sorry this was so long. But I think I just needed to voice my suspicions and get some feedback. What do you think? Comments. 1. Why are you with this bad person? He seems like a terrible person. OP, I have asked myself that several times now. I guess it is just when things are good, they are really good. I also feel the need to have proof. I am an overthinker by nature and it has sometimes led me astray and made things worse in my mind than they are. 2. You don't need proof, her actions speak very loud. She has no respect for you, you're in her frame, she's not in yours. Ask yourself if she desires you or if you're convenient. OP, already have asked myself that. I completely changed her life by marrying her. She was in severe financial difficulty when I met her. While I cannot say the financial road we are on is without bumps, I can say with confidence that I have made her life a better place. 3. What I read here is lies after lies after lies, and her not wanting you to be with her when your hotel reservations got cancelled. Oh, and also her self-dolling herself up for others but not for you. Have I forgotten something? How does the old saying go? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and swims like a duck, then it is a duck. The premise is very simple here. Your wife has a ton of options to reassure you and to show you that you are all that she wants. What she does here is the exact opposite of it. So she either wants you to be suspicious and to think that she is cheating or she is doing it. OP, thank you. I am an overthinker and I struggle with wondering if I am overplaying these things in my head and making more out of things than there is. 4. Yeah, as a woman in a committed relationship who would never think about cheating, I would never act this way. The way she is acting is disrespectful in itself. If my boyfriend said he was coming home early, I'd be thrilled to see him, not question him and tell him to stay, unless he wanted to be there and was enjoying himself. I also get the most dressed up for him. If we go out to a restaurant, I'm getting dressed up for him and I dress down when I'm with friends since the person I really care about finding me attractive isn't there. What do I care what strangers think? All this is sus, and yes, what she did before, kissing and almost having relationships, definitely counts as cheating. The fact that she thinks otherwise is another red flag. So sorry, OP. OP, thank you. At least I have others telling me I am not overthinking and have every right to think something is off. 5. OMG. Every post on this sub is exactly the same. You know the answers to your own questions. She has cheated on you multiple times, she gaslights you into thinking you are asking dumb questions and making wrong assumptions of her. Stay with her, things are bound to only get better. Rolling on the floor laughing. 6. Your wife seems to be looking for an upgrade. Especially when she demanded you stay at the hotel. The next time something like this happens, I would go home and not tell him, as he seems to be doing shady things. As she was definitely upset she wouldn't get to stay longer with the double date with the divorce lawyer. As she was dressed to the nines. She isn't trying to be honest with you at all with all the lies. Shy, are you married if you don't mind me asking? OP, when I first met her she seemed to be everything I had ever wanted. We had similar goals. She was adamant that I never cheat and she held herself to be not a cheater. She also seemed to be an open book and so upfront with showing skeletons in her closet. Since that time I have found she showed only certain skeletons. She lied almost completely about her relationshipsal past. In fact, she seems to have a talent for lying, for controlling, and for gaslighting. I am totally suspicious of her monogamy toward me. I have attempted to get proof of it, but so far I have failed. Also, she seems to have a knack for seeing when I am starting to pull away. At those times the relationship gets incredibly great. Relationships goes up. Affection goes up. Intimacy goes up. When this happens, I have a habit of letting things go and just enjoying it. I know this is silly, but she's so good at drawing me back in. 7. Actions and lies. No one telling the truth needs to get upset. Lies are a cover-up for things you would not approve of. Lies are for a reason. No one on the up and up need tell one. Period. So it might be time to start a little covert investigating. OP, I have done quite a bit of that. In the last 2 years. I discovered that while she tells me she has a low libido and never thinks about relationships, that she actually self-commutes regularly while our relationship's life as a couple is almost non-existent. Yet I have never discovered ironclad proof of infidelity, such as emails, texts, or phone calls. These incidents included here are all fairly far apart. Her opportunities to cheat and me miss it do not happen often. I have been surprised in view of these incidents that I have come up with nothing. 8. If you distrust her that much and things are as bad as you make them out to be, why are you still with her? Even if she isn't doing anything, your distrust will ruin any relationship you have. Trust is the basis of every strong relationship, and if trust has been displaced in a relationship, whether it is justified or not, there really isn't a relationship anymore. Make an appointment to consult with the divorce attorney she had dinner with. If he can't see you, that means she has already conferred with him. Just knowing her is not grounds to refuse to see a potential client. Pay him a retainer, but don't use him for the divorce. Have him draft divorce papers for you. You can then tell him anything you want, and if any of it gets back to her, report him to the bar and petition to have him disbarred.